temporary, I think.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
temporary.
I know.
It's like I'm on vacation.
Welcome.
Howdy.
So here we are, on a beautiful evening. There's an old Zen koan that goes, who gave us this long, beautiful evening? You can just sit with that as a question that you don't have to answer. So that would be a beginning of the way into this koan, actually. So the koan tonight is a famous koan called Cold and Heat. When cold and heat visit us, how can we deal with them? Why don't you go where there's no cold or heat? Where's that? When it's cold, the cold kills you. When it's hot, the heat kills you. So I put this koan in, I'm developing, in a slow, lazy way, a curriculum of koans for people to run small groups with and also to run leadership groups with. And when I was thinking about that curriculum, then I put this koan very early, like number 2 or something. It was number 2 in the Zenosaurus course. Yes, the Zenosaurus course in koans. Sort of typecasting the name, yeah. Or something, yeah. And I put it there because it's sort of, firstly, if we really meet reality, then everything becomes really simple, and that, like, meditation's really about that. Like, everything becomes luminous and quiet. And if you really notice, like right now, like right at this moment, if you notice what life is like for you, what's this moment like? When your mind's not chasing out here or chasing there or fleeing or grasping something. And you just look at this moment and look at you. Then you might be able to feel that it's good. There's nothing really wrong in now. Since now is always here. So there's something about whether we notice that nothing's wrong. And suffering is saying, this isn't it. Like, this isn't now. But when we're right here, you can feel like the sounds, being with each other, it's enough, And that quality is marvelous, right? And luminous in a way. And so there's that, and that's great, The department of it's nice work when you can get it, sort of thing. But it's what meditation's for, and it's like a mandala, really. It's like everything feels like it's in its place, and you're at home, you're in your place. And then the other thing that happens, and so meditation is really partly to do that, and that's, to just see what it's like being here on this planet, and to just show up, feel life. And then the other, and it's a certain sort of common courtesy to having been born, in a way. Have it, be it, so there's that, And then the other part of it is, well, on the other hand, I'm not always seeing the clarity of things, and sometimes I'm really not seeing the clarity of things. And so there's, despair and rage and sorrow and grief and the whole, parade of things, of conditions. And so, but when you really see reality, you realize that everything must be here no matter what I'm feeling or what I think is going on. What I need is here. What I need is going to be given to me here. And so this koan is about that. Like, so if a difficulty appears, if an obstacle appears, you can turn to the obstacle. And, usually when an obstacle appears, we run in the other direction. It's like, obstacle comes and we're here and the obstacle comes and we turn around. But, so you've got this funny little puppet thing going on. And then if you turn, the obstacle's chasing you, and you turn around, the obstacle. So you have this thing goes on, and it's true. Yeah, I guess in those early pixelated square slower games. We have to wait for the server to load it over and over again. The next move was good. So, yeah, an early reptilian dinosaur form of the game. So yeah, so you notice that part of being afraid of things is the fear. You know, the fear itself is the thing. And if you turn towards whatever it is going on with you, then it's liberating. Suddenly you realize you don't need to be afraid because you're here. And if you're here, you don't need to be afraid. You know, so, and you know, there are ways to go at this. You can but you notice that if you're, I don't know, whatever, you're overwhelmed by something in life, an extreme something. Usually we don't want to look at it because we think we know what it is. But if you're curious, you'll find that it's not only you can bear it, but you don't even need to bear it. It just has to open for you. If you're curious and turn towards it, like, I can't bear my whatever it is. Whatever you can't bear, that's the gate. So if you turn towards it, you realize it's got nothing to do with whether I can bear it or not. It's just here, you know. I can't bear the fact that the day is disappearing, you know. It just starts to sound silly. And so in Buddhism, the mythology, you know, the backstory, the legend, one of the legends of Buddhism is that that's the nature of delusion, is not to be able to bear things, you know. Like the Buddha was, you know, myths are interesting because they allow us to find out how we do that, you know. And and so in the Buddha story, the Buddha's mother died giving birth, and her husband didn't really recover, but he was a king, and so he didn't recover in this really interesting, odd way that sort of thing a king might, or a dictator might do, where he had the child raised well and looked after, and in fact his wife's sister, he married his wife's sister, and she looked after the child. She was the mother for the child, and he was the father. But then the king forbade the sight of anybody old or sick or dead or anybody seeking the way. But really it was the old, the sick, and the corpse that were the things. And so you can tell, so when Buddha thought, I don't know, something's wrong here. It doesn't seem right, you know. And every time I ask a question, they sort of, you know, they give me more, like, whatever it is, cocaine or sex or something, you know, something. And so there was a certain, anything he wanted was there before he reached for it. And he thought, oh, something's weird. Somehow, it's not making, the things we reach for don't make us happy in that way. And so his task was to turn into and to see what's the nature of suffering, you know. That it's all right to look into suffering, you know, to look at the, you know, not to hide, not to shut out that part of life. And so that broke the illusion for him, and then he went on and had his, you know, mythological, heroic journey. But for us, we're the Buddha, and it's not really about what somebody did somewhere else. It's about what do we do, you know, and how are we that. And so you know, what's a time when you've been faced with something, and instead of thinking I can't bear this, and just like turning away from it, we turn to it, turn into it. And that's a profound thing when we can do it, you know. And we notice that sometimes people, when something strange and difficult happens, actually they're kind of excited because it is interesting. And I've told this story before, but one of the great stories of this kind, I think, is I had a friend who was a really well-known clergyman and Unitarian, actually, but kind of semi-Christian. I don't know. But he used to come on the lam to us to sit, so he could actually have a spiritual life where nobody was watching him and assessing him, sort of thing. It's kind of sweet. And I liked him, and he's kind of had a edgy kind of quality, but I don't know if he was that suited to being a clergyman, but he was really good at it, you know, and everybody adored him. And then he came to see me one day and said, "I'd like to talk about koans and stuff." Like, okay, so, and he told me, he said, "Well, I have cancer," and I said, "Well," and he'd gotten the numbers and it just didn't look good, you know. It was aggressive and it spread and so on. And this was a while ago, and cancer treatment wasn't that good, you know. And so, and I said, "Well, how are you doing with that?" You know, which is interesting because then, you know, it's always good to be curious rather than assuming I know how he's doing with that. I said, "How are you doing? How is it having cancer?" He said, "Great." And I said, "Great." You know, and somehow I knew he'd say something unusual, and he said, "Yeah, you know, I'm a minister and I just put up with so much bullshit." He said, "I don't have to now." It's kind of a get out of jail free card. He said, "I just have to focus on my cancer." And I said, "Well, what do you most want?" And he said, "I want to get enlightened before I die." And I said, "We can probably pull that one off." We had no idea that was true. But in a way, I felt it was true. You could tell it was. There was something in him that turned all of him towards transformation. You know, and that was kind of sweet. You know. And so you'll find that, and you'll find yourself. You can turn into things. You know, sometimes it's really simple. It's just a technical trick. Like I used to get massive headaches when I was growing up. And I think it was because, I don't know why. Though occasionally I would surrender and get diagnosed by doctors, but it never helped. And I found that, and I think it was just stress really. But I found that if I just like decided, instead of like thinking, "Oh my God, when's this going to go away?" If I just like turned towards it and started to be interested in it, it was all right. You know, there was pain there or whatever it was, but it wasn't really a problem. You know? So and that life is really can be like that. That there's always a degree of freedom. You can always dance a little bit. You can always play with it. Like, what color is my headache? You know? If it were a tree, what kind of tree would? Anyway, I could start playing with it, and talking with it. Why are you here? I'm not saying. You know, whatever it is. So you can have. In other words, you let your imagination in, but that's also to let emptiness in, unless the vastness in, when you do that, into any situation, right? You know? And sometimes it's a matter of, I wonder if I want to tell you, I want to tell this story. One of the stories that associate with this is, in a session long ago, I asked people about like these really impossible things. Some things feel impossible to turn towards, you know, because they're so painful or old or whatever it is. But you know, the people who've turned towards something, you can tell there's a difference when you've turned towards something that's changed your life in some way. It's transformed your life in some way, you know. And so and if we try to keep out the difficult material, we're like Buddha's father, trying to keep it all away so everybody will live in Pleasantville, you know. And it's not, and we know it's not going to work, you know. And we know it looks creepy when you see people doing it, you know. So I did this exercise years ago in a retreat, and it was interesting because I asked people to go into the thing they couldn't go into, you know. And somebody immediately went to the back of the room and started wailing, which I don't know why I hadn't expected that. It was great, and so I went up to her. I knew she kind of had a strength to her, and I went up to her and said, "You doing okay?" And she said, "Great." And went on wailing. It was good. So that was turning into it, but she never did tell me the story of what it was, so it was great. But here's a guy who then started, who was a person who never, whenever anything difficult came, he'd tell a joke, and it was usually like a dopey joke, like a pun or something like that. Everybody go, "Oh," you know. And so, and he was an engineer, you know, and but he had a kind of sweet heart, but he would he'd never really show himself. And then he told this story. He said, "I was stationed in Ascom, South Korea in October '67, and he was the he was in charge of the tech supply, even though he was trained about with radar. And January 23rd started out with an early call for a company formation. We were told the North Koreans had attacked a Navy ship, and the situation was tense. This was the Pueblo. And we were told to go to our workplace and get ready to move everything south. We were at Bukyeong-dong, just a few miles from the DMZ. If anything happened, it would get to us very fast. We went to our shop, and I told everybody to get the supply vans moving. One of our workers, we looked out the rear window of the shop, and there was a lot of traffic on the highway going north. Missile trailers were lined up on the road heading north. Everyone else saw it by then, and we could tell they were loaded with nukes. So we were all, if the war had started, we had a ringside seat, though it would have been a very short experience. And I lay awake feeling helpless and scared. I didn't want to die. I was 24. And then we were told to stand down. We were relieved. Calamity had been resolved in some way, and we could breathe again. And he said he's grateful for the framework of meditation could just allow him to bring that up and experience it and weep. He'd never really been able to feel it, or, you know, in this context. So there's a certain way in which, and actually it was great, like an interesting thing, this really dark, strange experience. You know, the whole, in a way, the world on the brink of something that he'd felt. And then when he could speak it and turn into it and share it, then, you know, suddenly he became closer to everyone. You know, and we could see into his heart, and everyone became closer to everyone else too, because it's like, oh yes, let's hold hands. You know, it's like that, isn't it? Don't worry about the small shit. Don't take things personally. You know, so to turn into it. And the next thing I'll do is I'll read a. Poetry is a great. There's lots of turning towards it in poetry, and there we go. Hang on here. I'm going to read two poems, and this is Bang. This is a poem by an Australian poet, Les Murray. It's called An Absolutely Ordinary Rainbow. And the names of the clubs and places are just names in Sydney. And if you're Australian, you might know them, but I'm Australian and I didn't know them. They're sort of like, you know. Talking about like the Russian tea room or something like that. You know, it's like about Sydney. The word goes round Rapins. The murmur goes around Lorenzini's. At Tattersalls the men look up from sheets of numbers. The stock exchange scribblers forget the chalk in their hands, and men with bread in their pockets leave the Greek club. There's a fellow crying in Martin Place. They can't stop him. The traffic in George Street is banked up for half a mile and drained of motion. The crowds are edgy with talk, and more crowds come hurrying. Many run in the back streets which minutes ago were busy main streets, pointing. There's a fellow weeping down there. No one can stop him. The man we surround, the man no one approaches, simply weeps and does not cover it. Weeps not like a child, not like the wind, like a man, and does not declaim it, nor beat his breast, nor even sob very loudly. Yet the dignity of his weeping holds us back from his space, the hollow he makes about him in the midday light, in his pentagram of sorrow. And uniforms back in the crowd who tried to seize him stare out at him and feel with amazement, their minds longing for tears as children for a rainbow. Some will say in the years to come a halo or force stood around him. There is no such thing. Some will say they were shocked and would have stopped him, but they will not have been there. The fiercest manhood, the toughest reserve, the slickest wit amongst us trembles with silence and burns with unexpected judgments of peace. Some in the concourse scream who thought themselves happy. Only the smallest children and such as look out of paradise come near him and sit at his feet with dogs and dusty pigeons. Ridiculous, says a man near me, and stops his mouth with his hands as if it uttered vomit. And I see a woman shining stretch her hand and shake as she receives the gift of weeping. And many as follow her also receive it. And many weep for sheer acceptance, and more refuse to weep for fear of all acceptance. But the weeping man, like the earth, requires nothing. The man who weeps ignores us and cries out of his writhen face and ordinary body. Not words, but grief, not messages, but sorrow, hard as the earth, sheer, present as the sea. And when he stops, he simply walks between us, mopping his face with the dignity of one man who has wept and now has finished weeping. Evading believers, he hurries off down Pitt Street. So Murray's a great poet, actually. He's Australia's claim to having a great poet, but he's also kind of, he suffers, you can tell, from, the rhythms of the mind. But you can tell that there's nothing wrong with that. And here's another case of turning into something that's not a difficulty, but just turning into life is appreciating it too. And this is Pablo Neruda, Ode to the Tomato. The street filled with tomatoes, midday, summer, the light splits into two halves of tomato. The juice runs through the streets. In summer the tomato cuts loose, invades the kitchens, takes over lunches, sits down comfortably on sideboards among the glasses, the butter dishes, the blue salt shakers. It has its own light, a benign majesty. Unfortunately, we have to assassinate it. The knife plunges into its living flesh. It is a red viscera, a cool, deep, inexhaustible sun fills the salads of Chile, is cheerfully married to the clear onion, and to celebrate, oil lets itself fall, child and essence of the olive tree, onto the half-open hemispheres. Pepper adds its fragrance, salt its magnetism. It is the day's wedding. Parsley raises little flags. Potatoes vigorously boil. With its aroma, the steak pounds on the door. It's time! Let's go! So, many ways to turn into it. Yeah. And so, I'll stop there, I think. And how's the koan for you? How are you doing? Like, anything, just, what did it bring up for you? What did you meet? Yeah. What did you notice? Yeah.
At first I was looking for something big, like some intense thing that I could bear, and then I noticed really what my mind does is it is always pecking around, looking to make, just to adjust this thing or that thing. So everything has to be moved in some direction. A little bit more here, a little bit less there. And I noticed that my mind would, there's a lot of activity that's in the, if it could just be a little cooler, if it could just be a little warmer, you know. And so that was really interesting. I noticed that how much that constant just pushing a little bit at things makes the whole thing difficult. And then I was thinking about what heat and cold are, and I noticed like for me, okay, heat is too much. It's like too much pain or too much sadness or too much chaos or too much noise or too much, you know, it's like and then there's cold is like not quite enough. I can't quite get, you know, I want to know more than I can know, or there's, so anyway, it was interesting to find that. Oh, and they changed places. So something that was too hot was also too cold, like you know, not enough information was too much uncertainty, so it was both too hot and too cold. And then that just sort of resolved to wind and then leaves. But yeah, I noticed that thinking about its intensity, but it's, for me, it was just everything a little bit wrong.
Yeah, what my mind knows of that is actually, oh yeah, I forgot to say this, so I'm going to say it. When we identify something as to something, and it could be we identify something as desirable, like we'll use meditation, but it could be any situation. Like, oh wow, this is cool, everything's beautiful in the meditation, or it doesn't matter, like, you know, I'm happy, you know, I'm with someone I love, and there's just this feeling of ease and so on. And then the mind gradually starts to like clench around it, and we've got the clenching, and then we try to get back to the feeling of ease, but the relationship was so good last week, or whatever it is, you know, or you know, wow, my meditation was great, you know, and so what we have is the longing, and we don't notice. We keep thinking and planning, and the mind starts to plot and scheme and not notice it for the whatever it is, for the something that is not now. And so to turn towards the desire for something then becomes, that the desire for something is then the heat and cold that we turn towards. It's not like the desire to get away from something that seems too intense. What you're really working with is the desire, not the thing that seemed too intense, because that's what's here. So as soon as you work with the now, you start to get free immediately, and it becomes a game. You know? So, yeah, I mean, you notice over and over again meditation does this. Wow, this is going well. What happened? You know, I wanted it back. Then you turn into the wanting. You know, and or wow, this isn't going well. You know, that whole thing about having compassion-free meditation. Well, this isn't going well is not having compassion. That's not patience with yourself. Or the judging, assessing thing is not really, it's adding something to reality, where there's a transparency to what's happening now. And it's okay if you think, oh, I'd like it to be different, then you turn into the I'd like it to be different, is then that's the hot or cold that you're working with, not the original thing. And so it's always moving, what you've noticed, I think, you know, never stops flowing. Moment by moment, it never stops flowing. So it's another koan. What else? Yeah.
So I thought about how too hot and too cold, we can die from the heat, we can die from the cold, and I thought it was pretty remarkable that human beings actually can live in extremes of temperature and don't die, you know, and live in places in Siberia where they're completely snowed in for months at a time, or they live in the Sahara Desert. And then I thought it was sort of like a Goldilocks things. You know, oh, it's too cold. Oh, it's too hot. You know, and we're like looking for this just right, and we're very fussy, or I'm very fussy about it. And then all of a sudden it jumped to making a relevance to my life, and it was too much love, too little love.
Nice. That jump is nice when you get it. Yeah. Oh wait, this is what I'm really thinking about. Right.
And I was thinking, oh, there's that guy who's always telling me how wonderful I am and how he loves me so much and how great I am, and I wish he'd just shut up, you know? And then I was like, and then there's that guy and he never tells me how he loves me, and I wish he just would do that, you know, and I just felt amused.
Thank you. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's that amusement, that's the freedom setting. I like freedom. That's a nice thing, that laughter and emptiness have a lot in common. Yeah. Okay, who else?
Well, I was just really noticing what I do when I'm too cold. You know, I don't like being cold. So, and but I was really, it was very interesting because it would, at first it would feel like, you know, the cold was this thing that was sort of like clamping down on me, and the world was getting really small, and at the same time it was like sucking the life juice, all the warmth out of me from behind somehow. And then I was like, oh, that's my mind doing that. That's not the cold.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I was really like differentiating, you know, it feels like it's coming from outside, but really it was my mind going, you know, so just really, and then sort of sensing that that was somehow optional. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is optional. I mean, we noticed that, oh, these experiences we thought were involuntary, we've got some degrees of freedom.
Yeah.
So that's why this koan does have, there's something about method in this koan. Method's always a bit clunky because it's not, you know, we're interfering with the mind a little bit, but it's nice to know the things we can use. You know, so there is a voluntary aspect, yeah. Sorry.
I wasn't sure if I was taking it too literally, but I took the killing thing kind of is what grabbed me first. The idea of hot and cold kills you. And then I had the idea of like something taking over. I don't know, I kind of liked it in the moment when I'm thinking about my life and thinking about myself. I actually don't like when this happens, but the idea of being taken over by something that it like almost becomes you, or it I guess transforms you or something. It kills you basically, you know, like it takes over and then becomes you, and so you die. Part of you dies in that process. And then I was thinking, I just have a lot of stuff going on right now after I've gone through a breakup, and feeling I guess getting some clarity about what would make me happy in my life, and so I'm kind of committing more to that. But and it's stuff around, I've mentioned before, like around gender and like feeling not totally male, or I've talked about it at times here, but I realized like I'm not going to be happy unless I don't do that, unless I take that and just like do it, and I don't know how, but so that just happened like today, and or maybe even a couple of days ago. But that's scary and all this stuff, but it's the fact that it's like my life depends on it kind of thing. Like my happiness depends on it, my life depends on it. And so that's here, and I'm noticing it's hard because it's requiring me to change who I thought I am, who I thought I was gonna be. And it's nice in some way to have, like when I was meditating, Original Face came up, and I was reflecting, that's the koan I'm working with, and I was reflecting on my process with the koan because it's been about a year. And all of a sudden I just had this moment where I was like, oh, I don't even need, I'm not, it was like I was watching myself go through this process of change and transformation, being opened up by the koan. And it's got me, you know, it's like there's nothing I can do anymore, it's got me, and I'm and then it made me realize how, like, it was weird, and how impersonal life is, in a way, like, almost like my life, it's like I'm here for my life, but my life is almost this thing that I'm here for. It's not necessarily what I expected.
Yeah. Like I was just in Santa Fe and we were doing this whole thing on, retreat on the objective quality of the inner life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about what I made up. You know?
Yeah. It's really amazing to just see how it's, I mean, it's hard and it's all this other stuff too, but
also turning towards is, I haven't exactly worked out how it's all going to sort out exactly what, if there are 35 genders and I don't know if I'm number 15 or number 23, and it's all right to be, in other words, like in the process is all right, if you see what I mean. You know? But, and then you're refining some things and saying, well, I know I can't pretend to be that, or whatever it is, and so, and that's the objective quality, that you don't, some things we don't get a choice about, I think, and then we're still discovering other things. So I don't know. Somehow it feels like you're happy with that.
yeah, I mean,
with that like just being in
the process,
step-by-step quality.
And to have that moment of like, oh, I'm being held by something else.
Yeah.
And
in a way, it's not your business.
Sort of, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So I think thanks. I think we're it's time. So what we're going to do is have announcements and a little bit of sutras. And thank you for coming. It's a small, intimate summer group, and it's sort of nice. I'm here once a month, and it's kind of nice to be here. Thanks.
Announcements. I will announce. So what do we have? Thursday, so this is Monday. Thursday we have lunchtime Zen, 12 to 1. If you've not done that, you should, and you happen to be free between 12 and 1 on Thursdays, come in, it's great. Bring a lunch if you like. Next Sunday, 10:30 to 12. It's great. And Monday night I'm going to be giving a talk, and we're going to be live streaming it, and then I'll be away for a while. So if you want to, Thursdays I also see people, and if you want to talk about your practice, this would be, if you want to do that, make sure you get in touch with me. There are now 3 retreats on the web. There's a summer retreat, which still has room, and you can come part-time, and you can even still get scholarships, I believe. There's in September, there's another long retreat, and November, there's an open mind retreat in Bolinas. So check those out. Become a member if you're not. We love our members. And last but not least, on your way out, you'll see this box that says donations, and the box really loves it when you open it and put stuff in there. That's kind of how we keep paying the bills. So thank you.
okay, page 3. Refuge. Refuge in awakening. I take refuge in the way. I take refuge in my companions. Samsara a song for meditation. All beings are Buddha by nature, just as water and ice are the same. Without water, there's no ice. Outside of beings, no Buddha. People miss what's in front of them and go searching far from home. It's sad, like someone standing in water, crying out in thirst, or a child from a rich family struggling among the poor. We cycle through heavens and hells because we keep setting out on the dark roads of ignorance. Dark road after dark road. When will we be free from birth and death? Meditation can't be praised enough. The good effects of generosity and discipline, prayer, self-reflection, and practice have their source in meditation. With what you gain from just one sitting, all your crimes are wiped away. Then where are those heavens and hells? The Pure Land comes near. If this way moves you the first time you hear it, and you simply follow it, endless blessings come to you. Even more if you turn the light inward and witness your own nature, your nature which is empty nature. You go beyond any doctrine. The gate opens, cause and effect are one. There's no two, no three. The formless form comes into form. Going or returning, we are in the right place. Thinking thoughts without thoughts, singing and dancing are the voice of the way. The vast emptiness of deep meditation, the brightness of the bright moon of wisdom. Is anything missing from this moment? Nirvana appears before us. This very place is paradise. This very body, the Buddha.
Page 13. All living things are one seamless body and pass quickly from dark to dark. We remember you who cared for us and are gone, you who are ill, you who are at war, who are hungry and who are in pain. May you heal and have peace. We especially dedicate our service to the four boundless vows.
I vow to wake all the beings of the world. I vow to set endless
Thank you, Bodhisattvas. Thank you, Sammy. Thanks for coming, everyone. It's nice. You know.
Forgot to mention next Monday is community night. Awards for the weirdest snack.
Also, the next Monday night you're doing a live stream again.
I'm live
Is that right?
streaming, yep.
Yeah.
And
So
talking
tell your
about
friends.
community night.